thank you so much for coming out tonight to this information session. This is a session to help share some information about the upcoming teacher training program that starts in January of 2024. All right, so I'm going to share PowerPoint here. 1 second. There we go. All right. So I wanted to share firstly a little bit about me. So my name's Nirmal Singh, and I have quite a lengthy advertising and marketing background before I switched over full-time into wellness in 2002. And so I've spent the last 20 or so years involved with this particular area including yoga, where I offer classes and trainings and workshops. Also in event production, sacred chant concerts, doing some counseling work and coaching work with my business called The Wellness Path. I've been a Kundalini yoga teacher since 1999 and a trainer since 2006 and a lead trainer since 2015. And I've also involved with an offshoot of this work, a Beyond Addiction trainer, which uses Kundalini yoga practices. I've been a Beyond Addiction trainer since 2008. And that work, along with this other work that I'm involved with as a coach called Compassionate Inquiry, is the work of, a lot of it is the work of Dr. Gabor Mate. So I've been a practitioner, Compassionate Inquiry, since 2019. And if you're not familiar with Dr. Mate, he's quite renowned in the recovery field, addiction recovery, trauma recovery, and so forth, and an awesome practitioner. And so there's a whole counseling like program, therapeutic counseling program that's based on his work that I'm a practitioner of. I'm married to Beer Kaur, and we live in Brantford, Ontario. I have 2 adult kids. And I have a dog as well. You can see there in the top left-hand corner of the pictures there. Her name is Lottie. She's an awesome rescue dog. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about tonight's outline. Firstly, and this will be for those that might be newer to Kundalini yoga, I'm going to talk a little bit about yoga more generally, and then touch on very specific teacher training topics that we have within our practice, which I think are quite special. Talk a little bit about why I take this particular training, and importantly, to cover off the teacher training course requirements so you know exactly what you can expect if you sign up for the program. And then at the very end, as there's interest, talk about some Kundalini yoga class options, both online and for people that are maybe local in the Toronto market, to share a little bit about what's available there. All right, so that's the outline for tonight. Next, I'd like to talk just for a moment about why you might choose to be here, whether it's virtually through the recording or whether you're here right now. And what might have intrigued you about teacher training at this time could fall under one of 3 categories, we say. One is out of necessity. And this might be some kind of interest, a search for a solution to a problem, some pain that you might have, some frustration going on in life, but something that's unsettling right now, and you feel you just need to act and do something now. The second possibility for considering this is possibility, and that is, okay, so perhaps a friend went to class and started to share a little bit about that awesome experience they had with a Kundalini yoga class, and you go, yeah, maybe that's something I might want to check out for myself. Or it could be even beyond that. Maybe somebody that you know or might connect with has had some experience with our teacher training program and thinks that's pretty awesome. And again, might be something that you might go, oh, that's interesting. I might give that a shot. And then a third is perhaps a calling. So this is maybe a little harder to put your finger on, but this is having that kind of intuitive sense, some knowing that maybe there's more to the practice that you might be engaged in that you can really put your finger on, and you feel this tug, this pull, to go a little bit deeper into your practice. And to be honest, that's exactly what drew me into teacher training way back in 1999. I had been going to Kundalini yoga classes for a few years at that point. I've been going like weekly to class, and there was just something that, it was a little bit frustrating for me about that, because I just had this longing to get more deeply involved. And I really didn't feel like just going to class weekly was enough. And I didn't seem to have, the wherewithal at that time to develop a discipline around my own personal practice. And so I thought, wow, teacher training might be the way to go. And in fact, for me, it was. All right, let's talk a little bit now about Kundalini yoga. And we'll start by going even a step further back. What is yoga? Well, yoga comes from the biblical word that means to yoke. Very similar in its sound to the Sanskrit word yug, or jug, which means to join together or unite. And so what is it that we're yoking together or we're uniting? Well, we're bringing together finite and infinite consciousness. That's really what all yoga purports to do. It's about bringing, us in this physical, finite realm in touch with our infinite being. Now, more specifically around Kundalini yoga, for practitioners that have been around a bit, you might have heard this expression, the Kundalini yoga is the technology of awareness. Awareness of what, you might ask? Well, it's really awareness of these two things I just described, your finite and your infinite identities. And what I believe this technology does provide us with is to break through, rather, our unconscious limitations, the things that hold us back from being the best expression of ourselves, to really living life to the fullest. So this is very much about how we go about exploring our potential as a human being, having the availability of these tools of the Kundalini yoga practice. And I'll talk a little bit more about this idea of spirit and our spiritual being and humanness in a moment. So what about this? Okay, so you're exposed to Kundalini yoga, you go to some classes, you might, in fact, even choose to study this. And the point here that I'd like to make is that, having knowledge, an intellectual knowledge of something, of anything, isn't really enough. And I love this maxim that I first saw in our practice, which is knowledge becomes wisdom when it's your personal experience. Knowledge becomes wisdom when it's your personal experience. And I think that's so critical. What am I saying then? Experience here is key. So a teacher or a teaching can give you knowledge and can give you techniques, but wisdom, true wisdom, comes through your experience with these techniques. And when you have this experience, or to get this experience, then that requires commitment and discipline on someone's part, commitment and discipline. And that's really what you're buying into when you choose to go into a teacher training. A little bit more on this then. So what we might experience and expect through the Kundalini yoga practice then is our way of growing as a deeper understanding of who we are. This, as I mentioned here, a natural unfolding of our true nature. So what's true is that we may not have a very good grasp of what the heck it is we're doing here, but through a process like this, Kundalini yoga teacher training, we start to really understand ourselves and our nature on a very deep level. And as we become more present, more aware of that, of course, that allows us to grow and to live the experiences that we were meant to live and have in this lifetime. So with Kundalini yoga, then we grow by examining our habits, our attitudes, our behaviors. And through this examination, this self-examination, then we gain new perspectives, new capabilities, new capacities, and new habits, supportive, promoting habits that help to support us as we get more and more in touch with who we are. This might not look that new to you, but I'll touch on these three aspects here for a moment because we do go into quite a bit of depth with this, of course, in this training. And this is about recognizing ourselves in these three aspects of our physical body, our mind, and our spirit, because all of these come into play in life, and they do also within this practice. So within this, starting with the body, in our practice, we recognize that, this physical body of ours is a well-designed and systematic system that needs to be constantly maintained, just as you would maintain your car, because without maintenance, after a while, it breaks down. And then when it breaks down, then nothing else functions well. And that's kind of the way our own physical bodies work, and the impact it might have on other aspects of our being. So we have glands, and we have blood circulation, we have lungs, heart, brain, a complex nervous system. All of these aspects of us we address in Kundalini yoga. You will experience this, of course, in a typical Kundalini yoga class where you're doing some physical yoga as a component of that class, where you are working on something like the nervous system or the glandular system or on blood circulation, as well as maybe more energetic aspects as well. What is true, though, is that our physical condition affects everything else. So if we're not, working towards optimizing our health, then everything else is going to suffer as a result. So, we take care of that. We understand that, and we do our best. Okay, a little bit on the mind. Well, the mind guides our thoughts, our actions, and our emotions. And what's the problem with the mind? Well, as we think, so we are. So it all comes down to the mind. I have this expression that this friend of mine in another practice used to throw out there all the time. And she used to say, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're absolutely right. And the problem then is very often we have developed these self-limiting beliefs, right, that hold us back. And so, the mind is really, really important. This is something that, that we spend quite a bit of time looking to explore through this training and through our practice. Patanjali, who is one of these ancient yogis, that was the first yogi to systematize yoga, and it's published, right? The Yoga Sutras. Patanjali's sutras, really start from this premise that yoga is controlling the thought waves of the mind. It starts with the mind. This isn't about physical exercise. This is a means to help control and to adjust the thought waves of the mind. All right, that was a little on the mind. Now a little bit on spirit. And it's enough to just say that it's important to have a relationship with one's soul, with one's higher consciousness. And that might mean slightly different things to different people, or maybe not just slightly different, but different things to different people. And that's fine, whatever that is. But we recognize commonly when we're involved in a practice like this, any kind of spiritual practice, that spirit and our own internal expression of that is important to have a relationship with. This is the expression I was alluding to a little bit earlier. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. That's who we are, our essence. We're actually spirit having this human experience, not the other way around. We're not just human beings having a spiritual experience of going out to Kundalini yoga class, once a week, dipping your kind of toe in this. No, we start to recognize, and maybe it's a lifelong lesson, but we start to recognize that we are actually spirit and not just human. We're spirit having a human experience. And why are we here? Then why are we here? Why does spirit choose to show up this way? Well, we're here to experience life, to learn lessons, to grow, and cycle back to source. In a nutshell, that is a fairly commonly understood Eastern teaching. We're here to experience life, and we'll come back and re-experience what we need to re-experience if we need to continue to learn lessons. And they may be the old lessons that we haven't quite figured out yet. So be it. We come back and we repeat, and then we get it. We learn, we grow, and we cycle back ultimately, to God, to source, to universal consciousness again, whatever your expression for that might be. So these are these threefold aspects of us, body, mind, and spirit, then we explore, I think, quite deeply in this program. All right, I'm going to take a break, take a sip of water. Give me 1 second here. Okay, I'm having trouble. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, there, now I see you. Okay, so I was going to just suggest, stop me at any time. If you have any questions, I can pause and talk to you a little bit about that. And I can even put the recording on pause. But if we're good to go, just thumbs up and I'll keep going. All right, awesome. I'm going to keep going. Now, I think that there are really some cool aspects to the Kundalini yoga practice that separate it from other practices. Some other practices have some aspects of what we offer through Kundalini yoga and not others. But I think what I love about our practice, this Kundalini yoga practice, is that it has all of it. Like, you can choose to engage in so many different things. And I love that aspect of what Kundalini yoga offers. And we're going to start then here with sound and mantra. Sound and mantra again. It's just going to touch on that and get this to work here. Here we go. I think it's a really powerful distinguishing feature of Kundalini yoga. And the truth is, if you've had any experience with this practice, that you do some chanting. I mean, there's always some kind of chanting just to start a class and to finish a class, right? We tune in with the Adi mantra, Aug' Namo Gurudev Namo, and we tune out with the long time sun blessing. Now, in between these two parts, which we voice out loud, the beginning and the end of class, then we often have kriyas or meditations that might also include sound. So sometimes these, and it's more often maybe found in meditations than in the kriyas being the yoga asana sets that we do typically in a class. But even when you're not actually intoning something in a yoga class, in a yoga exercise along the chant, you're often encouraged, right, to mentally vibrate the Bij mantra Sat Nam. Sat on the inhale, Nam on the exhale. Inhale, Sat, exhale, Nam. So, we're in the practice here of constantly engaging with this vibration of the sound current as a way of tuning into deeper consciousness. And then we'll have meditations as well, quite often, right, that include, again, either silently chanting something or chanting something out loud, and so that's typically what's involved with a class. Now, so why do we do this? Now, this is going to be a really short explanation of that. And here it's just meant to just kind of spark your interest, your curiosity. We, again, dive a little bit more deeply into this. But, firstly, it's important to understand that the entire universe vibrates. The entire universe is built on sound. Everything we utter causes vibration. And importantly, it's not just the words that we might speak out loud, but even every word we think. That's why even the silent mantras are powerful. Well, it's not just limited to mantra, right? I mean, if we're saying that, that words and even thoughts have that kind of power, then it's important for us to be mindful, not just of our words spoken, but of our internal communications. And this is, again, coming back to that little piece on the mind, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're absolutely right. So, that self-talk, is really important. So here, what I'm saying is that whatever we do, we're creating constantly with our words and even with the words that we think. All right, now from a mantra standpoint, how does this work? Well, the science with this says that, on the roof of the mouth, we have these meridian points. And you can think of these meridian points as like a computer keyboard, where as the tongue touches different points on the roof of the mouth, it's like this keyboard is sending particular messages then to the hypothalamus in the brain. The hypothalamus, which in turn then connects with the pituitary gland, which in turn governs the entire endocrine system. So what we're saying is, by intoning these sacred sound syllables in the particular way that we do with these sacred languages, like in the one that we typically use, right, with Kundalini yoga is Gurbani. Sanskrit is another sacred language. Hebrew is another sacred language. Latin is another sacred language. But, so what we're doing is we're working these meridian points, and we share that there's 64 of these meridian points just behind the front teeth, the top front teeth, upper teeth, I should say. And then there's another 20 points a little further back on the soft palate, a little bit further back on the roof of the mouth. And what I'd like to do right now is, and this is what I've just described to you, that, that by the different combinations that are created through these sacred sound syllables, we're sending these different messages, through our endocrine system. So let's check this out for a moment, okay? Just as an experiment. Leave yourself muted, and I'd like you to try this with me. So you're going to chant la, 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 la. And I'd like you to notice la, 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 where the tongue is on the roof of your mouth. La, 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 la. Okay? So you've noticed that, right? Just behind the upper teeth, so that's on the hard palate. Now try this, and you'll be familiar again with Om as one of the sound syllables in the mantra Om Namo Gurudev Namo that we tune in with. Om, 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 and where's my tongue? Om, 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 Om. It's in a different location, right, on the roof of the mouth. All right, so that's just an example. And it's not that we need to pay attention to that per se, like, where is my tongue exactly, and what am I doing exactly with that? No, it's just to at least be aware that this is what's going on, when we're creating these different combinations of sacred sounds with the roof of the mouth. All right, so that was just a little bit on sound. Now we're going to talk about breath. And sure, breath does come into other practices too, but it's a very fundamental part, I believe, of the Kundalini yoga practice, and we delve into that. So I'll talk a little bit about it here. In teacher training, we look at breath from a couple of different standpoints, from the Western standpoint and the Eastern standpoint. So, Eastern standpoint, you're familiar likely with the term pranayama. From the Western standpoint, we look at breath from a respiratory standpoint. So we recognize that breath is both subtle, as in prana, and gross, as in, breath that we consciously inhale and exhale. It's not only subtle and gross, but it's both conscious and unconscious or automatic. Like we can recognize that we don't think about breathing, for instance, but it is simply always going on, unless there's a problem. And then we might recognize something's off. I need to pay attention to this. I need to make an adjustment to this. But very often it's automatic, it's unconscious. And so what do we do in yoga class? Typically, when we're engaging with a breath practice, for instance, we're consciously breathing a particular way. Consciously breathing a particular way. What's important here is to understand that the way that we breathe has a huge impact on our lives. Huge impact. This isn't just about how I'm choosing to be in a 90-minute Kundalini yoga class. This is about how do I normally breathe? Because as we start to understand this more deeply, then this can have huge impacts on our life, on our way of thinking, in our way of interacting with other people, and even on in terms of our general health, both physical health, mental health, emotional health. So we look at and might study, even right now, I'm just going to do this for a moment with you, what is your own breath automatic pattern like? What does that look like? Because for most people, it tends to be a little bit shallow. It's not a long, deep breath, right? Just automatically. Not talking about class here. And it sometimes is a bit erratic. Sometimes, and quite often, and I'll talk about this in a moment, it's quite quick. And it tends to be more in the upper chest area than a yogic, quote unquote, yogic breath that much more involves the navel. When we add this layer of stress, which often is part of our lives, then that has even a bigger impact, perhaps, on how we breathe. So stress can show up a whole lot of different ways in our bodies. You might feel your nervous system tensing up. But the question is here, do you actually recognize how that might impact your breath? And as we start to, I guess, more deeply appreciate how we show up under these conditions, then we start to be more available to our students as teachers, right? Even in the class, because this is a student that's coming into your class, right? Someone that's perhaps just come from a difficult day where they're stressed out, whether it's work or whether it's family or social or otherwise, this is who's coming to class. And so we recognize that not only, that the way that we breathe, is there for a very particular reason, but we recognize how to do something about that. And I'm not just talking about in the class setting. We have ways in the class setting, and we typically involve pranayama. Let's do this long, deep breath practice, or breath of fire, or Satali breath, you name it. We have a number of different things that we might do in order to create a particular change, and that's important. But what we want to also be able to do, and this is why I think the training is so great, is like, how does this apply to me off the mat, right? Because all of these things are going to be things that affect your day-to-day living, not just your yoga practice. So proper breathing, releases whatever armoring or tension, might be created, in order to ready yourself for fight, flight, freeze, for instance, that stress response. Proper breathing also increases our vitality. So again, if you've done any of that, you'll know that. And it does also help us connect with our self, with our spirit, with our essence. I love this maxim: the mind follows the breath and the body follows the mind. So what this is telling me is that we can actually affect what's going on up here in our minds by controlling our breath. And once we start to do that, then we can also have an effect then on what's going on in our physical body. So how you feel in your physical body can be managed through your breath. Now, to me, this is kind of an interesting, whoa, I didn't realize that, perhaps, which is the normal, quote unquote, normal, which is typical breath pattern, is maybe way faster than you might think. So studies have shown that in the male gender, 16 to 18 cycles per minute That's a lot of cycles. And with women, even a little bit faster than that, up to maybe 20 cycles per minute. And there's 24. That means, if it were 20 cycles per minute, that means that would be 3 seconds to do a complete cycle of inhale and exhale. And that's pretty quick. So let's just slow it down a little bit here and say, let's say a normal breath pattern was a little bit slower than these statistics I'm showing here, and it's 15 seconds. Well, 15, 30, 45, 60, that's 4 seconds for an entire breath. That's all. That's 2 seconds in and 2 seconds out. Now that's typical. That's pretty quick. So what do we do in yoga class? Typically, we slow that down. Again, breath of fire aside, typical long, deep breaths, that we will engage in a number of different pranayama and do, might slow it down by half that, right? So if we can slow our breath down to say 8 cycles from 16 cycles, that's 4 seconds in and 4 seconds out. And you might sa, ta, na, ma on the inhale, sa, ta, na, ma on the exhale, for instance, right? And why do we do that? Well, when we slow our breath down by that amount, our parasympathetic nervous system starts to kick in. That's that part of our autonomic system that's all about rest and digest and recover. When we're always go, 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 right? We just exhaust our all the systems in the body. We get adrenal fatigue, nervous system. Eventually, you just burn out, right? I mean, you have to be able to turn on or turn that foot down on the gas pedal off, and we do that consciously, through our practices, or we can do that. And as a result, we feel more relaxed, and we feel less stressed. All right, so again, I'm going to take a little breath here. That was a little bit on breath. And again, for the people that are a little bit newer to Kundalini Yoga, this will give you a little description of what a typical class looks like. And because this is the class that, as a Kundalini Yoga teacher, as you graduate, this is what you would be teaching. So a typical class is about 90 minutes or so, and usually offers something to start with around either a warm-up or breath practice, or both, followed by a Kriya practice, which is yoga postures combined typically with movement, or asana with movement, a deep relaxation, maybe around 10 minutes or so of that, to be finished with a meditation. And a meditation that might be, 10, 11 minutes or so, if there's time, maybe a little bit longer. So that's a typical class. And what many people have experienced and have shared as their experience then with Kundalini Yoga is that they notice a shift pretty quickly. Sometimes it's even after the first class. They'll go, oh my God, I felt something different happen. This isn't about building slowly towards, something else. This is about, being able to compress the practice in a way for what we consider ourselves to be householders. We're not people that are engaged with, a spiritual practice, morning, noon, and night. From the beginning, this was always a practice that was designed for people that might devote a certain small chunk of their day, maybe 2.5 hours, as the sun's just before the sun comes up, like in the ancient days. And we have that experience of that, which I'll talk about in a moment, even in our Kundalini Yoga practice. But the point is that this is a practice that is meant to help you engage with this energy, this Kundalini energy, in a concentrated form, and get on with your day. Okay, so why take this particular training with my business, which is the Wellness Path? Well, my business and this training through my business then is as a licensee of the Kundalini Research Institute. So anybody that's offering a Kundalini Yoga teacher training program, you should be checking to ensure that it's this program is taught by Yogi Bhajan. That is this program and not something else, because there are other people out teaching Kundalini yoga out there. But because this particular program is the same teacher training program when it's a licensed KRI program, regardless of where in the world it's taught and regardless of who's teaching it. It is the same 220-hour program, period, the same identical curriculum. All right, and through this training, you receive a thorough grounding of all the basics, Kundalini yoga, which is a blend of lecturing, reading on your part, yoga and meditation, all of this to give you a very deep, powerful experience of our practice. You receive personal guidance and feedback in key teaching skills, and you get lots and lots of practice to teach. The point being that at the end of this program, you're ready to teach from day one. And the way we approach this is I give you little bits and pieces to teach along the way that sets you up nicely to teach your practicum, which is teaching a full-on class in front of your fellow students, which you get marked on. And voila, there you've done it. You've taught a class and you're ready to go. All right. So it's to set you up for success around that. And I think importantly, being involved in this teacher training introduces you to a community of people like you that are also committed to their own self-improvement, to their own healing, and to their own professional development. This isn't to say that you need to go on and teach even yoga. The point that I started with here is to say, this is a life-changing commitment, that this journey that you're embarking on here. And whether you teach or not, the reality is you're a teacher because you're teaching 24/7. You're modeling what you're modeling, and you will change through a program like this. No doubt about it. The program is internationally recognized by the KRI, the Kundalini Research Institute, and it also meets all the requirements of the Yoga Alliance 200-hour membership, if that's important to you. This program gives you your membership in our association, International Kundalini Yoga Teachers Association. So in our association, the first year of your membership following the end of the training is included in your course fee. All right, time for another sip here. You're still good? Keep going. All right. Okay, what are you required to do? There's 180 classroom hours. You're required to attend all of those hours. You're given the opportunity, though, of attending the hours in person or online. So that's relatively new, right, since the pandemic hit. And you're encouraged to do as much as you can in person, particularly if you're local. There's little reason not to be, other than due to special circumstances. But the idea here is that you don't have to miss class, even if you're out of town for some reason, or even if you're not well and you don't want to come in, and get anybody else sick in your yoga class, your yoga training class. You can attend remotely as well. Okay, so 180 hours in class. That means there's another 40 hours of home study work. You're required to attend 20 classes. This is after the start of the program. So during the program, and if you haven't got them all in for some reason, then you would need to complete those 20 classes as soon as you can after the program is done. The classes have to be with a KRI certified teacher, and they need to be teaching, classic Kundalini yoga. And that's easy for us to ascertain. We'll talk to the students about who it is they might be attending class with, because we know commonly, who in the community are teaching classic Kundalini yoga and who may no longer be teaching that, if they were ever teaching that. But there will be some people in the community that might also be teaching, again, their version of Kundalini yoga, which is not what we want to see modeled for you, because that's not what you'll be teaching. Once you graduate, you're going to do what you're going to do. But our responsibility in this training is to make sure that you fully and deeply integrate this classic approach to Kundalini yoga. Okay. So 20 classes, 5 early morning sadhanas. So I made a reference to, oh, the early morning practice. This is between 4 and 6:30 a.m., 2.5 hours in the Amrit Vela before the sun comes up. That's kind of like the standard time for this. We have an actual set practice that we do in that time for those that want to do it. In the teacher training, it's a requirement to do it 5 times, which isn't a lot over a year's period. And in those 5 times, actually, I'll talk a little bit about that. For the classes, because online is an option now, and some people might even choose to go on and teach it that way. And very commonly, people have had experience, being taught that way. We now actually allow you an opportunity to attend maybe half of your classes if you choose to, but no more than half online. You're encouraged to do them all in person, but we're now allowing a little more flexibility in that. The same thing then applies to the early morning sadhanas. So they are offered also online occasionally, and so you could do a couple of them online and 3 of them in person, for instance. And they're actually taught, or not taught, but it's actually facilitated at the ashram every day of the week, in downtown Toronto. So there's no problem if you're in Toronto getting to early morning sadhana. So that's the good news. You're also required to attend a meditation day intensive. Commonly, that's been white tantric yoga when it's been available. It hasn't been available actually in Toronto for the last 4 years. It only was starting to be once again available this year. It appeared once or twice in the US last year. It's appearing a little bit more often in 2023. And in 2024, there'll be more of them again. But what we're doing now also is providing an alternative meditation day intensive. And I'm offering that, pardon me, in Toronto as well. So if the white tantric yoga, assuming it is available in 2024, isn't your cup of tea, you can do this other alternative program. And like we're doing one for this year's class, the 2023 class in September. It'll be an all-day meditation intensive. So, that's in the works. And also perform, and I made a reference to it already, perform a satisfactory student practicum. This is where you go out and you teach a class. And if for some reason it didn't work out, like you were just having a really off day, that's okay. You would have an opportunity to teach it again or teach a different one again. So I guess I'm making this point now, and I'm going to talk about, well, I'll go on and talk about some of the other requirements first. All right. Next, to complete a 40-day meditation practice of 31 minutes. So one of the important aspects to our practice is being in the habit of doing our practice, and ideally, in order to hold that kind of spark of a teacher, you need to be doing the work. I talked at the beginning about commitment and discipline. Well, this is part of that, right? This is about recognizing, and one starts to, and really starts to embrace it, that you can't actually connect with yourself on a deep level if you don't take your own process of getting there seriously. And we can do it this way through our practice. And we say, you know what? Hey, it takes 40 days to break a habit. So what you get is an experience of doing a 40-day and a consecutive day meditation practice of 31 minutes. Typically, the first one's assigned, and then you have other opportunities over the course of that year. You do more of them, and that can be a different practice other than something that might be assigned. Like Kirtan Kriya, we commonly assign as your 40-day meditation practice. And, that doesn't work for everybody, in which case then you would have another opportunity to do something else as well. But what you need is one for certification, one 40-day practice. You also will identify here, complete 2 curricula, assigned curricula. So the assignment is simply to do a class series and a workshop. What you decide will be that class series theme and that workshop theme is totally up to you. All right. And so what does that do? It means that at the end of your teacher training, you can run off and teach a Kundalini yoga class series of your own development right away, or a half day or full day workshop whenever you like. Again, something that's near and dear to your heart, and it's awesome. Anyway, but that's a requirement. There is an exam. Usually there's two versions of it. There's an in-class closed book exam, and there's a take-home exam. I typically, in my program, go with the take-home exam, and you have like the last month of the training to do it. So on the second last weekend, you get the assignment. Of course, it's take-home, it's open book, and you have a month to get it back. So, and you need to get 75%, but it's open book and you have a month to do it. So it would be rare that someone wouldn't get 75. And even if they didn't, just like I was starting to say back in the discussion about the practicum, if there's some kind of hiccup, you have an opportunity for a redo, just like you do here. If you didn't get 75 in the exam, those areas that for some reason weren't there, you would have another opportunity to redo, right? So nobody fails this program unless they choose to walk away from their commitment to just getting it done or doing whatever it takes to get it done. So it's like being persistent, right? Okay, and we're almost at the end of this now. There's a code of ethics that needs to be signed, and we go over that in quite some depth. And then after each class weekend, there's homework, and that needs to be done. And it needs to be done for a bunch of reasons. But importantly, it is a great way of integrating what you've just been taught on the previous weekend, the 2-day weekend. You get homework that just helps reinforce what you've already heard. And and it's a great way, again, to set yourself up to understand basic stuff so that you're prepared, with the exam. And in fact, if you've answered all of the homework, most of the homework you'd actually find on the exam, and it's just like copy and paste. For the take home, it's pretty straightforward. So, but anyway, that is required. A little bit on the cost of the course. There's an early bird, December the 13th. So that's about a month and a week or so before the training actually starts in January. For adults, it's $32.99 plus tax. After December 13th, it goes up to $35.99. For full-time students or seniors that are 65 plus, it's 10% off. It's $29.69 and $32.39. What I also offer people are customized payment plans. If they want to go the payment plan route, you pay a little bit more. But what I've done is I've also looked at this, and what I would offer, and I worked this out for anyone that wants to look at a payment plan and still wants to pay as little as possible. I would honor like the early bird rate for the adult, $32.99 or $3,300. If someone wants to start paying in September and extend that, a couple of months into the new year, then I would honor that rate. Typically, my payment plan rate is based on the regular rate. I just extend it over a whole bunch of months. The first payment would still be required by December the 13th, essentially the down payment, and then I work out a plan over the next like 6-7 months or so. Over 6 months, it's a little bit less than if it was over 7 or 8 months. So again, I don't want to go into too much detail with that here. If this is something that's of interest to anybody, they can contact me and I can go over that in some detail. All right. So, but the point here is that I can be pretty flexible around payment plans to find a solution that works here. And what does this cost include? It includes your Aquarian Teacher Manual and Textbook. So they're two separate books. What's nice about the Teacher Manual is that it's only yoga and breath and meditation. And so that that booklet you can take with you, to class to teach out of. And then we have a separate book, quite a thick book, on all of the curriculum in the program. This cost does not include your classes, your 20 classes, and it does not include your meditation intensive, whether it's White Tantric Yoga or the alternative, options that are going to be made available. And just so you know, the early morning sadhana practice that I made a reference to, that never costs anything. Whether you're in teacher training or not, doesn't matter. If it's sadhana, there's no charge. All right. And here's a glimpse of who are kind of some of the key people involved with the training. So there's myself. In the middle is Ekon Karkar, who's a wonderful teacher trainer from Texas, who Zooms in. And Eva on the right there, Eva is someone that works closely with me here in Toronto. She teaches through her own business called The Garden. And she guest teaches as well with Lotus Yoga Center. I guest teach through Lotus Yoga Center, as well as I just kind of teach and develop my own programs and put them wherever there's interest in having them. So that's the team. But I will mention that there are also other teachers and trainers that are brought, like I bring in a sound specialist, for instance, to talk and does vocal training. I bring in a mantra, like a musician, to also get involved in the sound and mantra weekend. I probably next year will be looking at someone that's actually has a specialty in numerology. So when we get into the humanology topic area, we'll either do that, or I might also bring this other person in, a colleague of mine that, has studied extensively in that area too. So from time to time, I just, bring other people in, as well as experienced teachers to come in and help teach classes occasionally. All right, and I've already covered off 180 class hours and 40 self-study hours. It's located downtown Toronto, the Ashram, Palmerston and College. The course, it runs over 11 weekends. So there's full course weekends, January through July, not in September, and then in September through December. But what I do, which is in fact what we're doing this coming weekend, this Saturday in Toronto, is plan a practicum day. So most people will have an opportunity to teach back to back classes. They'll be running in Toronto on one day in August, towards the end of August. Okay. And here's a peek at the actual dates. Again, all of these are on my website. And if you're not familiar with my website, I'll give that at the end here. But I will mention it's TheWellnessPath.ca, and you'll see it on the last slide, I think, regardless. But these are the dates. And you can see in August, there's that one day, August 24th, which is the practicum day. So that's what we're setting up as the practicum day for now. The meditation intensive day will probably, once again, I haven't scheduled that yet, but it'll be probably in September, a one-day event in September. If you choose alternatively to do White Tantric Yoga, that's going to be typically it's the first Saturday in May. So it won't conflict with our program. Yeah, so that would be probably May 4th. And I mean, there's no guarantee it'll happen, but the intent is for the people that organize that, that's what they plan to do in 2024. Up until 2020, when it was canceled, it's been run in Toronto every year since the mid-70s. So, okay, what are the benefits of doing this training? Well, to maintain flexibility, and this is not just your muscles, but everything, your mind, your emotions, everything, flexibility. It helps balance your glands, helps switch your mood, your state of mind, and your level of energy quickly. So you probably know that and if you've had an experience of a class, how you can shift things pretty quickly. And why teacher training? There's no better way to understand something more deeply than to teach it and to share it, you know? I mean, like, you might be going into a course like this. My interest in going into teacher training in 99 was I just wanted to understand this thing more deeply. It wasn't with an intention to teach, but I did understand in time that the teaching helped me understand it on a more deep level than I otherwise might. Whether it's a class or whether it's a workshop or whether it's teacher training. I love teaching teacher training because I continually learn more and more as I teach. The reality is the world's changing right now, and people need teachers. I said earlier, whether you actually teach a class or not is, for me, not as important as just recognizing that you go through something like this, you change. And the way you change and the way you keep up with what's going on with you and the way you connect with yourself on a deeper level and with others on a deeper level, that's what the world needs now. They need teachers, they need leaders, they need people out there modeling what we model. Kundalini Yoga will give you the stamina, the courage, and the insight to manifest your highest potential and to lead and support others. That's what you can count on. All right, so that's that. I'll mention that what I offer is, and it right now it continues to be online. I live in Brantford, Ontario. I don't live in Toronto, and so my classes weekly continue to be online Thursday nights, and I teach themed. Like right now, I'm teaching a program, and I have been for some time now, teaching something called Yoga to Change Habits. So it comes out of the Beyond Addiction program I mentioned on the first slide that I'm quite involved with. So this is about how we deal with the things that block us in life, and how do we move past that. Anyway, so that's my class, and that's available by donation through my website or through membership with Lotus Yoga Center or Lotus Stream. And Lotus Yoga Center is where you would find in-person classes. Lotus Yoga Center .ca, I believe. And they teach, I know they're in-person classes on Saturdays, Saturday morning, Sunday afternoon, Tuesday evening, Thursday evening. So that's what they've built back up to right now, 4 in-person classes a week. They also have, including mine, they have a steady menu of online classes as well. I tend to teach some things in person and online. Our teacher training, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be live streamed on Zoom. So I bring in typically trainers that way from wherever they live in the world. And I think that experience works really, really well. I also teach some of my workshops online as well as in person. So I have one. If the breath piece that I talked a little bit about here was intriguing, I do have on my website, I've just posted it now. I haven't got the link live yet, but it will be very shortly. I'm going to do a 2-hour breath workshop called Manage Your Breath to Release Your Stress at the ashram. And it'll be both available in person and online. So for the first dozen people that show up, want to do it in person, you can. And after that, it'll get closed, and then people can join online if they want. So anyway, there's lots of options. Again, if you're curious to know a little bit more about that, then you can reach out to me. I'll reach out to you just as a follow-up from this, but you can you can share back with me and ask any questions you have about the training and about classes and other resources around where to find classes. There's a great newsletter that our community puts out once a month as well. And again, I can share that information with anybody that might be interested in that so they can get on that list. So not just to see what I offer, what Lotus offers, but what everybody else offers as well in the community. All right, Sat Nam. I mentioned at the outset, I do a bunch of things, including coaching. So if you're looking for more information, that's my contact information, whether it's around teacher training or coaching or my events that I sponsor. TheWellnessPath.ca, and there's my email and there's my phone number.